good morning, good afternoon, or good evening to you, you thirsty bunch of beer drinkers, whenever and wherever you are tuning in from. It's great to be back with you today, talking about our favorite beverage. I hope that you enjoyed the last episode of Between Two Fermenters, this here podcast, which is brought to you by Great Lakes Brewery, my employer. The conversation I had with Luc Bim Lafontaine, the owner of Godspeed, was a great one. And I really think we got him to open up, and he went through his whole career in beer, and it was a fascinating journey to take with him. You can find that show right below this one. And hey, if you liked it, and if you do like it, please leave us a rating and a review or tell a friend. It would be greatly appreciated. And I'll give a virtual high five right after you do that. Now, let's get to today's guest. It brings me great pleasure to welcome Nick Perry to the show for the first time. Nick is the production supervisor at Great Lakes and has been with the company since March 2016. That is over 8 years if you can't do the math. He started out on the packaging line before moving into production, but there have been changes along the way that we'll get into today. Good changes for both Nick and Great Lakes, and you, the listener out there. Along the way, he has worked his ass off to get where he is today, and he's received some great training too, with brewing education at Master Brewers Association, brewing and malting science at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, and hands-on experience through our collaborative partnership with Rittmeyer Brewery in Hollendorf, Germany. Nick has brought these learnings back to GLB and strengthened our brewing program, beefed up the way we talk about beer, and gets the team excited with each new release. For years, Nick has been the fella brewing up a storm off the seven barrel series beers like Monty Mild, Absacker Helles, Retronym English IPA, rose-colored glasses, Pale Al, ESB, Martzen, Ziegen Doppelbock, and many more. But, and a big but, before all of that, Nick was an entrepreneur and a photographer for Torstar, the parent company of the Toronto Star, and we'll get into the reason why he made a career change getting into beer. I'm sure he'll offer some tidbits for others wanting to do the same. So without further ado, it's time to crack this here Canuck Pale Ale, New Englandized, and take a sip. And welcome Nick to the show. Hang tight. We'll be right back.
There appears to be only one line on this sheet. $50 for a case of Great Lakes Premium Lager. That's it? That's the ad? Okay. Cases of Great Lakes Premium Lager are only $50 every day of the year.
Nick Perry, welcome to the show. I love that we could get you here after a long day of brewing. There's a beer in front of you. There you go. You know the drill. Welcome to the show, Nick.
Hi, Troy. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's my absolute pleasure. What time did you start today, and what did you brew?
Today, I actually got to sleep in a little bit. We only had 2 brews on the schedule today, so I started at 5 this morning. First brew today was Vienna, and then followed up with Octopus Wants to Fight.
What time did you wake up to start at 5 a.m.?
I think I got up around 2:30 or 3.
And how are you feeling today?
Pretty good.
All right. You ready to go?
Yeah, let's do this.
So there's a couple of reasons why I wanted to get you on the pod. Actually, there's more than a couple, really. One, you changed careers to be in beer, and I'm really fascinated by you took a big leap of faith, and you did that, so I want to talk about that. 2, you've navigated your way from working on our packaging line to being the production supervisor at the brewery, which is pretty cool. 3, you've had some great training over the years, and I want to touch on that. And 4, you're always continuing, and this is what I love about you, you're always continuing to evolve and grow, making things and people around you better than yesterday. Trademark. Ready to get into all that? I want to talk about those kind of 4 things today, if you're cool with that. But before we dive into that, I want to know who you are. Tell us about who Nick Perry is. What's your quick and dirty bio?
Sure, yeah. I didn't really prepare anything for this. Sorry.
Typical brewer. Yep.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm just a brewer. You've covered a lot of stuff. I worked at Great Lakes now for a little over 8 years, coming up on 9. Before that, I was in the media industry, working as a photographer. Come from a small town, grew up on a farm. 3 brothers, beautiful wife, and a dog.
And what's your dog's name?
My dog's name is Monty.
And we'll probably get into that a little later.
I think he'll probably come up, yeah.
So you just mentioned that you were a photographer before you got into beer. Before we get into homebrewing, because I know you're big into that, walk us through, you were taking pictures professionally for an organization that, Tourstar is a big company, but you were also doing pizza at pop-up farmers markets and stuff like that.
Yeah, that was kind of an in-between phase. So rewind all the way to high school. I did a co-op at the local newspaper, got really into photography, and decided that was going to be my career path. Went to college for photojournalism and landed a job in the newspaper industry working for a company called Metroland, which is no longer around. But they ran a series of weekly newspapers across the province, and I was a staff photographer with them. I worked for a couple of different offices that they had, eventually ending up in Toronto. And it was honestly, it was a really good career. I still enjoy photography and do a little bit of it from time to time. And it was always new things happening. It was a really great job.
I'd say you probably saw a lot of crazy stuff over the years doing that.
Yeah, sure. I mean,
and you got to see some small businesses. And
Yep. One really cool story. I actually got to go for a ride in a stunt plane once, doing loops and barrel rolls and all of that kind of stuff for the Niagara on the Lake air show.
Nice.
So I had all kinds of great experiences like that. I really enjoyed photographing sports. Sports action was one of my key things that I really was into. But at the time that I was in that industry, the internet was starting to be a big thing, and printed publications were really going through a tough time.
Yeah.
So the writing was kind of on the wall that a career in that was going to be a challenging thing going forward. And I decided I wanted to try something new.
Unless your name's like someone like Steve Russell, who's been with the Star for 40
actually,
years or whatever. Yeah.
Steve Russell, Peter Power, all those guys. Really, really cool guys, locked into their careers and dedicated in a way that they weren't going to do anything else. But I had this other interest of homebrewing. But there was a little in between.
So before we get there, I want to just touch on, you came from a small farming community, growing up on a farm, to Toronto. What was that like coming here from where were you from?
I grew up.
Where are you from?
I grew up in a small farming community village called Princeton is the closest town to my parents' farm, just outside of Woodstock, Ontario, kind of between Woodstock and Kitchener. I moved from there to college in Belleville, and then I lived in Niagara for a little while, and then before moving to Toronto. So I moved to Toronto, I want to say it was maybe around 2008, something like that. And it was a bit of a culture shock.
I guess so.
It was very different to what I'd known before. Found a great deal on an apartment that seemed too good to be true. Turned out it was. It was in a bit of a sketchy part of town, and there was a lot of crime and weird stuff going on in the neighborhood. But
you survived.
We survived and got that sorted out, and I ended up loving Toronto, and I've sort of stayed in the area until just recently, moving back out to a more rural community, you could say.
On what street? This is something I love about where you moved into.
Where I currently live?
Yeah.
My current address is Temperance Street.
Is that not crazy? A brewer living on Temperance Street.
We have a little Facebook chat group with our neighbors, and it's called the Brewers of Temperance Street.
And there's a great picture. I remember when you moved in to that house, and you borrowed one of the Great Lakes trucks, and you have a picture on a snowy day with the truck underneath the Temperance sign, which is amazing.
We moved in January, and it was really snowy that day, and the neighbors saw the Great Lakes truck outside, and they were like, "What's going on over there?"
Just one hell of a delivery. So you were doing photography, you're in Toronto, and then you started into doing some pizza. And I'm interested in that because this is, before you get into homebrewing, or this is during homebrewing, but you got the entrepreneurial itch, and what led to that, and what was it all about?
Yeah, so I'd been homebrewing for probably about 10 years.
By that point?
Yeah, by that point, before I left the newspaper. And you're right, I was interested in entrepreneurial things. Honestly, the ultimate goal, even when I was doing the pizza, was to open a brew pub.
Okay.
I was looking for, like I said, I was looking for a career change, and I kind of came to this idea of doing a like a kind of a pop-up mobile food business, just as a low-cost way to start some kind of business, and then the idea was to scale it from there.
So with the brew pub and the goal of opening a brew pub, what was the name? You probably had a name.
Yeah, I did. And actually it was Wayfinder, which is
almost like Waymaker.
Kind of.
Wavemaker,
yeah.
Sorry. Yeah.
But actually there's a brewery in Portland, very well-known brewery now, that stole that name.
No, they stole So the pizza, the home brewing, and the photography, what was it about beer that attracted you to the industry? Like, why did you say, okay, you're home brewing and I'm going to put words in your mouth because I'm just guessing here, you won a couple medals or something like that, and you're like, oh, this is easy. I'm with the GTA Brews Club. I can make a career out of this.
Do you remember the SOBs?
Yeah, Southern Ontario Brewers.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I got involved with those guys a little bit. I don't know. I saw something interesting happen in beer.
So what year would that have been? That would have been about, you moved to Toronto in 2008. So around 2010, 2012, you're getting involved in that?
So yeah, that would have been when I was kind of getting involved with the SOBs. But to go back to when I first got interested in brewing in general, there's actually a very specific moment that I remember that kind of inspired me to try homebrewing for the first time. I was at a friend's house, and his mom had this homesteader's cookbook, and there were all these weird recipes in it and everything. And there was one, there was a recipe to make your own beer. And it was the first time that it ever occurred to me that was something
you could
do. Yeah. Beer had always been just this industrial product that just, was on the store shelves. And the idea that you could go through the process and produce a beer in yourself with relatively simple ingredients was just fascinating to me. And so in college, I tried making a batch of homebrew with an extract kit from a local homebrew shop.
Just like Great Lakes did back in 1987?
Yeah.
Yep. Okay.
It was a little later than that. They were ahead of me on that one. I was only 6 at the time when you guys were doing that. Or we were, I guess. I just thought it was really cool, and I tried it, and it turned out terribly.
That's the one thing you hear about from everyone who was a home brewer that's turned pro or amateur, whatever you want to say, that the first batch was terrible.
Oh my God. It was so bad.
The goal was the next batch is going to be better, and then the next batch. Is that how it went for you?
Not exactly, because I was a college kid just looking to have some fun, and it didn't work out, and I was like, okay, whatever. And I just kind of put it aside and didn't think about it for a while, and I can't really remember what prompted me to try it again. But the next time I had because I bought a little bit of equipment, the carboys and all that kind of stuff. And I thought, well, I've still got all this stuff. And I gave it another shot, and I took it a little bit more seriously, dove into, what it takes to do it well. And it turned out better. And then, and that's when I really started to become engrossed. I won't say obsessed.
And then you joined the community here in Toronto, and you started just to expand the mind and the horizon of what you could do and what you could do with ingredients. And when did you, though, decide I want to work in beer?
So once I started taking homebrewing more seriously, I thought, and that entrepreneurial itch that you mentioned, I thought, I wanted to open my own thing. and then the combination of looking for a new career and all of that, I just kind of saw an opportunity, and I thought, well, if I'm going to do this, I should get some experience and see what really goes on. So I guess that kind of brings us to when I ended up working at Great Lakes. I just started applying to different breweries just to sort of get in somewhere and see how things really work. Because home brewing and commercial brewing are very similar but different. It actually surprised me how similar they are. Yeah. Like what we do isn't.
Well, I'm not a brewer, so I don't really know. But
what we do in brewing is the same. The scale is just different. So there's more technology involved in the brewing on the commercial side, because the scale is bigger, because we're dealing with larger volumes of things and all of that. But at its base, it's incredibly similar. And that was one of the things that really I found interesting, was that what we're doing at Great Lakes isn't really that different from what a home brewer's doing. We have some tools that help us do it at a larger scale and help us control things to a finer degree. But at the end of the day, we're trying to accomplish the same steps and the same goals out of every batch.
Make things better every day.
Absolutely.
So that's 2016 that you mentioned that you were applying and you got a job with Great Lakes, but you didn't get a job in production. Was there a reason why you just wanted any job to get your feet wet at a brewery? Because you went to the packaging line. That's where you were hired. And those were some, I wouldn't say they were wild days back then, but we were growing at a very tremendous pace at that time.
Yeah, it was very rapid.
So the packaging line, you were working on the packaging line. Tell me about your experience at the brewery back then.
Sure. Well, just to go back, you asked about, I ended up working in packaging there and not in brewing. And yeah, like you kind of alluded to, I was applying to whatever breweries
just to get
had openings, just to kind of get in the door. I had an interview at the Granite. I had actually another offer at about the same time at Black Oak to do more of a customer facing role. Actually, I took that job and then got offered the job at Great Lakes and then said, no, I'm not going to work at Black Oak.
Sorry, Ken.
Sorry, guys. But honestly, it was because the role at Great Lakes was closer to brewing.
To the brewing side,
I started Great Lakes, and this is one of my favorite things to say to people when they ask about my history at Great Lakes is I started putting cans in boxes.
Literally every can,
by hand.
We used to say every can was touched by hand.
Yeah.
At Great Lakes.
Yeah. So my job was to take cans off the conveyor belt, put them in a box, and hot glue the box shut. But as Troy alluded to, things were growing very rapidly at Great Lakes at that time. I think I came into Great Lakes at a time of transition where things were going from being a little bit, I want to say cowboy, to getting a little bit more serious.
We were a little bit fly by the seat of our pants, firefighting all the time, to, hey, we're selling a lot of beer. We need to invest in people, products, equipment and SOPs, if you will. And that was a kind of a dirty word, I think, for a long time. We need a standard operating procedure for running this $500,000 canning line. yes.
That was the old canning line.
That was the old canning line. Yeah, the new canning line's much more expensive than that,
But yeah, I in some circles, SOPs are still a bit of a dirty word, especially when it comes to the creative side of coming up with recipes and that kind of stuff.
That's different.
It is different.
We can talk about that, but the brewers, it's the greatest line, and I'll contribute this. And Cameron's Brewing Company for years was made by a brewer, not an accountant. I love that line, and still to this day, I think that's the way we've always operated. It's like, you want to try something new, just go do it, go brew it. And we'll see how it sells. We'll see how it does. You need some parts to do spooning. Well, we'll do that. But you were doing so every can was touched by hand. You're putting the cans in the box, hot gluing. But after a bit, and I don't think it was that long, you got tapped on the shoulder.
It was really quick. It was within a couple of months, I think.
There was something that someone obviously saw in you to say, hey, you want to be the packaging supervisor, and that's you. We had a bottling line and a canning line, and the bottling line was new, and so I don't think it was as temperamental as the canning line was. But actually, you were the only one that knew how to run the bottling line.
Yeah, because the bottling line hadn't been installed yet before you started. Yeah, okay. So
you were trained.
So I had 1 or 2 days working on the old bottling line, okay, which was terrifying.
The crusher.
But yeah, so at the time, I remember telling people that I got a battlefield promotion because the manager at the time of the packaging department left for another opportunity, and there was kind of this moment where somebody had to step up, and I guess I was the most appropriate person in the room.
We tend to hire from within as much as possible.
Absolutely.
Or promote from within as much as possible. But no, you're sugarcoating it a little bit. I think there was the work ethic that people looked at you and said, this is someone who wants to grow in this industry. Because I remember these days, and you just took it, and it's like the bull by the horns, and you just wanted to go in there and say, I'm owning this now. I'm going to look after this. Whereas other people at the time, and no offense to them, but they were, this is my job. I'm going to put cans in boxes.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of you to say. I honestly at the time felt like I just happened to be in the right place at the right time. And I mean, that's, what do they say? Luck is being prepared, or
as Dwight Schrute says, Billy Zane says, you make your own luck, but whatever, something like that.
Yeah, but I mean, it was a good combination. I remember when I started at Great Lakes feeling that there was a good fit with the people who were there, and I felt like I could fit in there, and if the opportunity was to present itself, which it did, I could find a way to be someone who could contribute. So, like I said, fortunately, the timing worked out that I was there at the right time, and I ended up way in over my head running the packaging department, not knowing anything about this, what seemed insanely complicated equipment to me, and now we've got even more insanely complicated equipment, which I understand a little bit better now. But it was just a matter of figuring it out, which seemed like the ethos at Great Lakes at the time.
Yes, and sometimes that's the best model, is there's someone that doesn't know it, but will own it, that will take it to the next level. And I'm not going to say you did that, but I'm saying you did that. So you did that for a while. You were packaging to packaging supervisor, but then there was a change. There was one day at one time that you wowed Mike Lackey at the time, and this is from Mike Lackey's his words. You gave him a bottle, or you gave him some of your English mild, a homebrew recipe, and Mike took a drink. He's like, well, actually, he told me in his words, Nick was drinking something at the brewery that was not ours. And I asked him what it was, and he said, oh, do you want some? And you gave him some of your English mild. He took a drink and said, holy shit, this is really good. And so that homebrew recipe, while you were in packaging, won over Mike Lackey. And then he started working on, well, this guy, we should get him over into the production side. So when did you move over to production, and why did you want to make the switch? Like, we already kind of know why you wanted to make the switch, but at that point in your brief career in beer, why did you feel like, now I'm ready for this next step?
Well, I didn't feel like I was ready, but it was where I wanted to go.
Yeah.
So that was in about 2018. And it's funny you tell that story. I didn't fully realize until recently I had a conversation with Lackey about how I ended up in brewing. And at the time, it felt like another situation where I was in the right place at the right time. We had recently acquired the copper 7-barrel brewing system, and there were plans in the works to eventually open a brew pub. And so there needed to be more people brewing and more people involved in the brewing. And so there was this opportunity there. And I felt like I was given the opportunity based more on having demonstrated a work ethic and an aptitude or willingness to learn than anything else. But I was humbled recently to have a conversation with Lackey, and he told me that my homebrew had impressed him, and that he, based on that, at least partially, wanted to give me the opportunity. So that's, I still think, before I worked at Great Lakes was a brewery that made beer that I really enjoyed and thought, was interesting and innovative. And I thought a lot of really good things were happening there. And obviously Lackey was a big part of developing those recipes and all of that. So to know that, these little homebrew batches that I was making were contributed to him having the confidence to put me into that role. It's humbling.
So I want to get this straight, because I've never understood this. You're working at Great Lakes, you're in packaging, you get free beer, yet you're going home and home brewing.
Constantly.
Was that because I know you just said you loved Great Lakes and you liked the beers and you looked up to the brewery, but was it because you just wanted to refine your skills, or was it because we weren't making a mild or other English style beers at the time?
I think if it was just about getting access to beer, absolutely Great Lakes had plenty to offer. But no, I was on a path to learn how to make beer better and to make that my career. So to me, that meant brewing as much as I possibly could. And I was brewing.
Why'd you choose a mild? Sorry, I cut you off there, but why'd you choose a mild as your beer?
I don't know that I chose that specifically. It was one of many things that I was making at the time. I was really interested in English style beers in general. I had recipes for ESB, which
you came to brew.
Yeah, we made that at Great Lakes as well. ESB, ordinary bitter, mild was one, stouts and porters. I gravitated a lot towards English styles. I think partly because I have English heritage, so it resonated with me that way.
You wanted to show off to your family. I get it, yeah.
No, my dad drinks like Bud. Not anymore. Actually, now he drinks Canuck. Yeah.
Oh, Canuck.
He switched to Canuck. It's huge. I tried to get him on lager, and he was like, "No, I like that. I like that one with the lumberjack on it."
Once people start drinking, yeah.
Actually, that reminds me of a funny story. Well, not funny, but when my youngest brother got married, we made a label for a beer for his wedding, and it was a hoppy beer. And we had on tap, we had a couple of different beers, some more approachable for the macro drinkers, and then this one that was,
where are you from again?
Princeton,
near
Woodstock.
So when you say approachable beers, you mean like I get what you're saying.
To the macro drinkers. Yeah. So people that are used to drinking your Canadian Coors and all of that. So we had some light lager and that kind of stuff, but we also had this one because most of my brothers are also kind of into craft beer, and so we had one that was hoppier, and that was special for the day. My brother came on the brew day to help with making it. So because he had helped with making it, everybody, felt like they had to try it, and they were like, "Did you put fruit in this? What is?"
Use Jolly Ranchers in there.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry for the total tangent. I lost track of where we were.
When you moved over to production, though, it's not like you were like, "Hey, you're gonna work in the cellar. You're gonna, you're going to grow this. No, Lackey and you decided that you're going to go right onto the creative side of the brewing team. So here's the keys to the 7-barrel system, which was the old copper system that we had
I love
set
that
up.
brew house, by the way.
Yeah, it's at Blackburn now.
else,
It's at Blackburn, yeah. And so Peter bought that system for our 30th anniversary, and we brewed 115 different beers on that in 1 year in 2017. But then you got the keys to it in 2018. You were the fella who mainly brewed on it for a while, a long time, introducing the new one-offs, finessing some legacy brands. When I say legacy brands, I mean some of the old one-offs that we were doing. And then COVID hit, and you were on that system all the time.
We couldn't keep up.
Yeah, we couldn't keep up. So let's talk about some of the beers that you were responsible for creating. I mentioned some off the top, but how instrumental is that for a brewery to have a pilot system and allowing someone? So we talked to Lackey on, I think it was episode 1. It was. We have to get him back to go into more of that. I always used to say he had the Malcolm Gladwell 10,000 hours to perfect his craft. He would just brew whatever he wanted and then just keep brewing it on like a 70-liter system. You got the keys to a 7-barrel system, which is the equivalent to 700 liters. 700 liters, so a little bigger. You got the keys to the 7-barrel system, and you just went right into it, like with vigor, brewing. What can you tell me about that period of time? Like, were you on cloud 9 or?
I mean, I was very excited to get the opportunity. When it was offered to me, I was over the moon. It's kind of a funny story though, because you mentioned getting handed the keys, and it was almost literally just here's the keys, go have at it. So I had never made more than 20 liters of beer at a time, and here I was going to make 700 or 800 liters in a single batch with, my homebrewing system was all gravity. There were no pumps involved. I'd learned a little bit about working with pumps and things from packaging, but I wasn't quite prepared for how quickly I was going to get thrown into the deep end. Mm-hmm. So I had, I think, one opportunity to shadow on a brew with Lackey.
One opportunity.
Yeah. And the next weekend, Lackey and I were supposed to brew together. And this is the other thing. When I first started, brewing was on top of my packaging role. Mm-hmm. As the transition happened, I was still doing packaging during the week, and then I was coming in on the weekend to brew. And one weekend I just kind of shadowed, and the next weekend we were supposed to brew together. And I think on Friday, the day before the brew was supposed to happen, Mike said, "Oh, I forgot. I'm going to be out of town. You're on your own.
It's a nice day. I'm going to go skating or
something." Yeah. And so I just had to figure it out, which was terrifying, but also.
Do you remember that first brew?
Yes. It was, what's it called? Brutalism.
The very first Brute IPA.
Yeah, Brute IPA. So there's
that's making a comeback. Yeah. Just an FYI.
Yeah. So it was a little overwhelming, but I figured it out, and I think that was one of the things that Mike was looking for, was somebody who could figure things out. I think he may have not entirely forgotten that he wasn't going to be there.
Idiot savant. So over you didn't answer the question. Over the course of 2018 to moving into our, 4 a.m. brewer, setting the tone for the day. What are some of the beers that you helped create, that you helped bring into the vocabulary of Grey Lake's portfolio, and why did you choose some of the beers? So that's 3 questions. Why did you choose some of those styles? So rose-colored glasses, pale ale. So you did Brutalism. That was your first beer, but you were like, let's do a smaller version of that, essentially.
So Brutalism was a Brute IPA. Pale ale is the Brute Pale Ale version of that. a little bit less strength. I mean, I find that question tough to answer about why, because the way we tend to work in brewing at Great Lakes anyway is ideas are just kind of always flying around, and you just kind of grab one and see what happens sometimes. So
isn't that awesome though that we can just like,
it's amazing.
Nick, you have an idea, just try it and see what happens.
Yeah. But we also throw ideas at each other, and so why sometimes it's hard to answer. A couple of the beers that you mentioned, like mild rose-colored glasses, and the ESB were beer styles that I had brewed as a home brewer. So being able to do that on a commercial scale was really exciting. That the first time I had a pint of ESB on cask at a pub, it was really cool. I was drinking this beer that I'd been making at home for probably 5 or 6 years before that, at a real bar on a proper beer engine. It was pretty cool. And to be able to do that was a lot of fun.
Are you still in love with the beer industry as much as you were when you were homebrewing, like from day one?
Yeah, I think so.
Or more so?
I mean, I don't want to do anything else, so I guess so.
So we talked about this earlier before we went on air, but since early 2022,
oh yeah,
you have been our 4 a.m. brewer. You set the tone and you set the day up for the team. So walk me through a typical day in the life of Nick Perry, Monday to Friday.
Yeah, I get up, I roll out of bed, have a coffee.
At what time?
Usually get up around 2:30. I'm out the door by 3 or shortly thereafter to be at the brewery for 4, because I live out of town. And yeah, I come in, and the first half of my day is very regimented routine. Like there's a process to making beer. You mash in, you start running off, you sparge, you boil. Like those things don't change from style to style. Mm-hmm. So I come in, I get the water to temperature, I measure the salts, I get the water in the mash tun, I start putting the grain in. It all just kind of becomes I don't want to say routine because I don't want people to think that I'm
monotonous.
Yeah, it's not anything like that. But I know what I'm doing every day for the first half of my day.
Yeah.
And then later in the day, once the first brew is in the kettle, and then that's something people might not know. We brew typically 3 batches of beer in the brew house every day. So
in the summer, sometimes 4. We get up to 4.
We have started getting up to 4, just to keep the tanks full, especially in the summer. But yeah, so I start the first brew, get it as far as the kettle. The brews overlap, so I will also, once the mash from the first brew is emptied, I'll mash in the second brew, and then there's another brewer that comes in who takes over the reins in the brew house, and sees that brew through, and then the third brew of the day he mashes in and carries that out. And then it's a big team effort. And then after more people are in the brewery and I move off of the brew house, I'll get involved in some more administrative stuff, and I involved in planning for brewing schedule and developing recipes and that kind of stuff throughout the rest of the day.
So years ago, Peter Bullitt developed a relationship with George Rittmeyer, the owner
that worked out really well for me.
It did. Did it ever? He's the owner of Brewery, and I'm not going to say the German how to pronounce it, but Brewery Rittmeyer in Germany, a 600-year-old brewery, I might add. They came here and helped you, Lackey, the whole team develop an Absacker Helles, Absacker, our German Helles, which has significantly improved over the years. It really has. Peter just said recently it was the best batch he's ever tried. But through that relationship, a deal was brokered. The GLB would send you, Nick Perry, over to Germany to work at their brewery for 2 weeks and to walk around, travel around to all the other breweries in kind of the vicinity. They would host you there. Tell me about that experience. And honest to God, I'm not jealous of you at all before you tell the story.
Yeah,
not
right.
one little bit, you jerk. But tell me about that experience.
It was incredible. It was inspirational, educational, a whole lot of fun. It was amazing to spend time there and see that brewers are brewers no matter where you go.
Yeah.
You, like, I felt comfortable immediately. They were so welcoming. So yeah, like you mentioned, Peter developed a relationship with George, the owner of Rittmeyer, in a town called Hollendorf, just outside of Nuremberg.
Which is Franconia.
Yeah. Where they drink more beer per capita than anywhere else in the world, as far as I was led to believe, and seemed accurate.
Until you ask the Czechs, and they're like,
there
the
might
Germans,
be some debate,
yeah.
but I think they said it's something.
They drink.
I'm not going to say a number, but it was.
They drink a lot.
It was high.
You wake up, you drink beer. You go to lunch, you drink beer.
Yeah.
You go to dinner, you drink beer. You go to bed, you drink beer.
Also, you eat pork.
Yeah. Lots of pork there.
Oh yeah. So Peter got to know George. I'm not going to try and say his name in a German accent either. It's
George Wittmeyer.
It's like, but the George it's like a soft G, so it's like a. Anyway, I'm not going to try because I'll embarrass myself. But there was I don't know if this conversation had come up before this, but the first conversation I had with Peter about going to Germany was in on the West Coast when we were traveling to Yakima for hop selection. We were in Bend, Oregon, visiting a brewery there called Freem, who makes
amazing
exceptional lagers.
Yeah.
And we were drinking these really great lagers, and I remember saying to Peter, you have a really good connection with a German lager brewery. Maybe we could work something out where, and this was entirely selfish, but I said, maybe we could work something out where I could go over there and learn how to make better lagers from them. And he kind of laughed and he said, yeah, actually, you know what? That's a good idea. And I thought it was just, road trip over
Banter,
beers, banter. And then a few weeks later, he came to me and he said, I want to send you to Germany. And I was like, wow, that sounds amazing. So we worked everything out, and I went over there for, I think I spent 2 weeks, at Rittmeyer. And, well, you say that, but
it's great for us though.
But also my first 3 days there, I was literally scrubbing floor drains.
Yeah.
Like on my hands and knees. Yeah. It was disgusting. But
at the same time, it wasn't disgusting because it was probably already pretty clean.
Yes, they're drains.
Yeah.
Like they get gross after a day. Like it's never going to be not disgusing. I'm not suggesting by any means, but they take that seriously. They take it that seriously, that we were down there on our hands and knees with brushes, and I didn't get the impression that this wasn't like common practice.
Yeah.
And yeah, I got to spend 2 weeks there. So yeah, my first few days were just like, I talked to George later in the my time there, and he said, I just wanted to illustrate that the importance of coming from the ground up. So that's why I had you cleaning floor drains.
Did you know that I was going to lead into this? Because there has been a theme to your career at GLB. You worked your way up from packaging to production. supervisor to tackling different jobs and departments along the way. So today you are the production supervisor, right? So you look over the whole brewing team and the scheduling of the beers and everything. But looking back, what makes you the proudest? So when George says that to you, you want it from the ground up. You actually did that to advance your career.
Yeah.
So what's your proudest moment of doing that?
I don't know if I could put a specific moment on it, but I am proud of the fact that I was able to just be a part of contributing to what we do and making better beer all the time.
And so for anyone out there listening that wants to make a career change, as you did, to get into the brewing side of things or just the industry in general, beer industry in general, what piece of advice would you offer to them sitting where you are now?
I think if it's something that you truly know you want to pursue, to go for it and to try and make your entry wherever you can. One thing I've experienced for myself, but also seen for a lot of other people in my time in the industry, is that if you show up in the brewing industry and you express an interest and show that you're willing to work for it, opportunities will present themselves.
You don't just show up today and tomorrow you want to be a brewer. You have to put the work in to show that why you should be in that position.
Yeah. But I think the industry is one where a passion goes a long way, and then couple that with hard work and things will go in the right direction.
So we have a couple questions from fans.
Really?
Yeah.
Someone actually responded to that?
Someone responded to that. Ali Grant on Instagram asks,
I always just assume people don't know who I am.
Well, that's why we're here today. No, you've done so much for the brewery, Nick, and I'm not like, I got to get to the questions before I do the send off, but you've done so much for the brewery that, we were talking about COVID earlier today when we were doing the Zoom chats and we were doing all the tastings, the beer dinners that have started to kick up. You are amazing at them. You talk about the brand, you talk about your career, you talk about the beers with to use a Matt Tweedy, vim and vigor. You talk about the industry in such a positive light, and you talk about advancement in a positive light. And so, yeah, one, people need to know who you are, but two, the people that know who you are know exactly what you contribute to the industry and to the brewery. So that's all you need to know. So let's get back to Ali.
I thought you had a question.
No, it wasn't a question. Yes, question from Ali. And before I ask you this, I have to say, I'd like to thank Ali for tuning in to every single episode and supporting the podcast. Thank you very much, Ali. Your comments and your DMs along the way have been very thoughtful, and we thank you for it. So to get to our question, have you ever had to deal with a brewery infection?
Can I not answer this question? No. Yeah, it happens. Yeah. We've had to dump beer.
But is it an infection, or was this something that we just don't, we taste and we're like, you know what, this isn't up to our standards? Boom, it's down the drain.
Yeah, both have happened.
Yep.
We make over 600 batches of beer every year on our main brewing system and over 100 on our pilot system. You're not going to make that many batches of beer without something going wrong at some point. And we have a QC department that is picking up things from an analytical level. We're doing tastings as the beers are maturing to make sure things are going the way we want from a sensory perspective. But it happens, and it's heartbreaking to see, the amount of work that you put into that going down the drain, because we put a lot of work into these beers. Physically, it's demanding sometimes. And to see all of that just have to be poured down the drain because it's not up to par is disappointing. But I'd much rather not see that beer go out to customers, when it's not up to par.
Yeah. Bonus points for that answer. From
It's true.
Toronto Mike, he wants to know, Nick Perry, what's the best beer you've ever produced?
Ooh. I hate picking favorites and bests about anything. But there was one batch.
You had this in the chamber. You knew you're okay.
No, I didn't actually. I didn't really foresee this question coming, but it's coming to me now. There was one batch of Fruit Shop and we made that was so good that it was gone before we knew it.
The last Absacker that you guys did is gone.
That went quick. We've got a larger batch brewing on the main system in next week.
Nice. Very good. So we're going to take a quick break to refresh our drinks here. And then we're going to come back with some rapid fire questions. Are you ready for this?
Ready.
Hang tight. We'll be right back with Nick Perry.
Hey, craft beer lovers, ready to show off your passion? Let me introduce you to Hop Bomb Apparel Company. This isn't just another t-shirt brand. Hop Bomb puts the same care and detail as a master brewer into every design, crafting each tee with original beer-inspired graphics, using premium fabrics and small batch screen printing methods. So whether you're visiting your local brewery, hitting up a beer festival, or just hanging out with friends, show off your love for craft beer and style with Hop Bomb Apparel. And right now, you can get 10% off your order with the code FERMENT10 at checkout. So check out hopbombapparel.ca and find your next favorite beer drinking tea.
We're back with Nick Perry. We're going to ask him some rapid fire questions. Nick, are you ready for this?
Let's do it.
What beer, other than Great Lakes, have you been enjoying recently?
Ooh, other than Great Lakes. When I read this question, I didn't read the other than Great Lakes part.
What do you mean? We send these in advance? Come on.
Sorry.
Oh, you know what? I like the answer. I like the hesitation. I like the pause. He's drinking Great Lakes.
I'm drinking Great Lakes almost exclusively right now, but I will throw a shout out to one of my favorite local to me breweries up in Caledon. I drink a lot from Sonnin Hill.
Nice. Very good. Yeah. Still going strong?
Yeah.
Yeah, good. We did a collab with them.
We did.
It was around this time last year.
Hummingbird,
yeah.
pre-prohibition.
Yeah,
lager.
that's right.
Yeah.
Name your celebrity doppelganger, Nick Perry.
I have been mistaken for Mike Lackey. What we were trying to figure out who that would be.
He said Matt Dillon.
That was for him.
For him? I thought he said for you.
He said he's been mistaken.
Who's
for
on
Matt
first?
Dillon. What's on second?
Well, who's on third?
I don't know.
Okay, so Mike Lackey is your doppelganger.
I guess so, yeah.
Name a person or brewery in the industry that continues or has inspired you.
I mean, I have to say Mike Lackey.
Okay.
He's been a mentor to me. He's given me opportunities. He's helped me develop to where I am in my career today. So I have a lot of respect and appreciation for him.
Can I tell you who you remind me of sometimes too?
Sure.
Is Ian McCustra. You guys seem to have this seriousness about you, about the brands, about the beer, about the process. You have something similar to you.
If I could be a combination of Ian McCustra and Mike Lackey, and I could go back to myself 10 years ago and say that's where I was going to end up,
that's who you'd be.
That would make me pretty happy.
I can see the analytical side, the process side of Ian. I can see the creative side of Lackey. And when I look at you, that's who I kind of think of as you straddle both lines. So
thanks, Troy.
Best time and place for a beer.
any time and place.
Favorite brewery you've ever toured?
I had a really fantastic tour at the Fuller's Brewery in Chiswick, just outside of London.
Okay.
They have a 400-year-old kettle, and I think their mill is just about as old. The kettle's no longer in use, but the mill is.
I thought you were going to go with the Germans, but that's a great
That was
answer.
more than just a tour.
Yeah. If you could only drink one beer for the rest of
Sierra
your life.
Nevada Pale Ale.
Amazing. Favorite place to grab a beer in Toronto?
Bryden's.
Bryden's where?
Bryden's on Bloor West.
What do you love most about your job?
Just getting to make great beer. Doing something I love.
What's it like working with Mike Lackey?
Rewarding and challenging.
Best hangover cure for the last question.
Don't get hungover.
All
Lots
right.
of sleep.
Lots of sleep. Yeah. Okay. Well, you can't do that if you work. You got to get up at 2:00 in the morning to get into the brewery for 4.
That's why I don't get hungover.
There you go. Honest to God, Nick, I've worked with you for over 8 years. There was things I didn't know about you that you shared today, and that was amazing. You do amazing stuff for Great Lakes, and I think on behalf of all the staff that enjoy your beers, thank you, and for all the customers out there that enjoy this delicious Monty Mild that's in my hand right now. Thank you for that, and all the stuff that you do for the brewery. So thanks for coming on the show today. It was great to have you on, and final cheers.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Thank you, Troy.
Cheers.
Fun. Cheers.
Cheers.
At Bossa Nova, we have more than 400 products you won't find at the LCBO. Our craft beer comes from local faves and legendary producers like Driefonteinen, Bruton, and Hitachino. Our wines are the ones sommeliers bring into better restaurants, rarely available to take home. We have Basque cider, Normandy cider, Italian, Californian, as well as the finest from Ontario. Next door, relax and enjoy our outstanding selection in the newly opened Bar Bossa Nova. Bossa Nova in Roncesvalles Village. We've got a lot of stuff you're gonna love.
Around the industry.
Around the industry. Thank you, Charlotte, for counting us into that. It's been a quiet few weeks around the industry as breweries get prepared for a very busy month of December. Yes, reps out there will know holiday parties await in all parts of the province. And speaking of parties, here's one to add to your calendar. Nick, do you got this in your calendar? Thursday, December 19th?
Troy's annual industry social.
That's right. I'll be hosting my annual industry Christmas gathering at Brighton's on Bloor in Toronto. Stop by anytime after 3 p.m. for a pint or 10 of merriment. Please bring some non-perishable food items for Daily Bread Food Bank. And then that's a nice segue into I brought up Daily Bread Food Bank, so let's just keep going with that theme. GLB has launched 2 special release beers at a retail stores as part of our 16th annual Hops for Hunger campaign. White Eggnog Stout and Vanilla Porter, both brewed with love and respect for Daily Bread. $1 from each can will help in the fight to end hunger in our communities. And Daily Bread can take that $1 and that provides a meal to a family in need. The Prime Minister of Canada recently announced that his government will be temporarily cutting the GST on all grocery items, restaurant meals, some alcoholic beverages, children's clothing and toys, print newspapers, and the most important one, Christmas trees. As of December 14th, the GST exemption will apply to beer, wine, cider, and pre-mixed alcoholic beverages below 7% ABV, and the tax break is projected to last 2 months until February 15th, 2025. At Great Lakes, we're still seeing how this will go down, so no answers yet on how this will be rolled out. Stay tuned on our Instagram and our newsletters because we'll tell you then. And that's it. That's all, folks. Episode 24 with Nick Perry, from pizza and Pics to Pilsner and Pints, has moved from the mash tun to the fermenters. Today's episode was fueled by cans of Canuck Pale Ale, New Englandized. Hopefully you'll be able to find this beautiful beer online at greatlakesbeershop.ca or at both of our GLB retail store locations. Also, keep an eye out for it on tap at terrific beer bars across Ontario. You can visit the brewery at 30 Queen Elizabeth Boulevard in Etobicoke or grab some delicious eats and fresh pours at our brew pub at 11 Lower Jarvis Street in Toronto. If you have any content you'd love to hear us discuss on the show, guest ideas, or just drop us a line at podcast@greatlakesbeer.com. Until next time, please remember to keep tipping your glass of fresh GLB in the right direction. Supporting local never tasted so good.
To learn more about what's happening at Great Lakes Brewery, visit greatlakesbeer.com and subscribe to our weekly newsletter or follow Great Lakes Beer on your favorite social media platforms.